Ladies and gentlemen, here we are in the eaves of centre court at Wimbledon in SW19. And it's a perfect day. Wimbledon is looking effortlessly evergreen, majestic, and I am sat here. It's my great honour to be sat here with the former British number one, with an icon of the sport, a legend of the game, national treasure, and a nominee of the only famous mountain in the UK that counts, Henman Hill, Tim Henman. Welcome.
Tom, thank
Yeah,
you.
welcome.
I've had few introductions in my life, but that was
I
absolutely
think I
spot
covered
on.
all the basics.
You did, and
Yeah.
you sort of ended up on, I think, the most important
On the hill.
bit. Yeah,
There are some important mountains in this country. Mount Snowdon, Shore, Ben Nevis, fine, Scafell Pike, but the only mountain we care about is Henman Hill.
I couldn't agree more with
Yeah.
you. It's an excellent start.
yeah.
Thank you for that.
And also I feel the host of Wimbledon. Do you feel that like you're the host of Wimbledon now?
I sort of feel like I've got a few hats on,
Yeah.
and those hats have evolved
Yeah.
and probably accumulated. I reflect back every time that I come here to the first time my mum
Yeah.
brought me when I was 6 in 1981.
Wow.
And I was lucky enough to be on centre court, and I still have the ticket to this day, and I saw Beyond Ball play. So that was definitely a monumental moment in my
Yeah,
life.
huge.
Then to come here as a player, to be as a spectator for many more years, and then to get the opportunity of playing, and then post tennis career to be involved in the media, but also on the tournament board. It's a place that is very, very special to me.
But I also feel because you had such an extraordinary career here at Wimbledon. I know you also. You were ranked number 4 in the world for many years in the mid-90s, late 90s,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
And obviously major form at the US Open, Australian Open, the French. But it feels like Wimbledon you are the face of it, and almost like you always have been.
I think I definitely have the greatest connection here, and I think I asked myself, why was that? And I grew up in an area where we didn't really have, too many
Yeah.
British tennis players, and I think it's always been perceived as the greatest tennis tournament in the world, in Britain, but we didn't have any players. And so when I started to, play better and sort of change the narrative that actually, we could have some good players, then the support that I had and the atmosphere that I played in was just incredible.
Well, that was you. You were the good player. I remember it very well myself. I'm only a couple of years behind you. I didn't come to the championships in 1981. I was born in 1981, but now I know.
And we went to the same school.
And we went to the same school.
Yeah.
What are the chances? But I really remember, and you must have been at the very beginning of your senior professional career, coming online to tennis and coming on and being so inspired by it, and by you and your progression deeper and deeper into quarterfinals and semi-finals. When I was as a child, I must have been, between the ages of 8 and 18 was really your career peak.
Yeah.
And rooting for you and cheering for you and queuing up actually with a friend at some point, trying to get tickets to see you.
And it's crazy to me, to look back at that time and to see how this place has evolved. And we often talk about history, tradition, but also the innovation. Every time I come here, I sort of feel that sense of occasion, the aura of the venue, but then you see the simplicity of the predominantly white clothing, the green grass. You go into centre courts. The Royal
so
Box.
beautiful.
It is. It's that attention to detail. There's, the elegance, and I think that's what continues to make it so special for everybody.
It is almost. I keep asking myself, does British summertime get better than this?
I think that's where
I
think also that this is obviously a tennis event, but it's become more than that. It's become part of the social calendar. It's where people love to come and experience the occasion.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it so special for the spectators, but also the players.
Yeah.
Because we've had the list of great champions that goes back nearly 150 years.
Amazing.
That is a huge part of the aura and the opportunity of this event. And so, yeah, I feel very fortunate still to be involved.
And do you think that moment watching Borg was formative in terms of the way you played?
It was definitely when I made my one and only career decision that I wanted to play tennis. In terms of another Swedish player, Stefan Edberg, he
Amazing.
was a huge idol of mine. He was a serve and volleyer. He used to live in London. He was someone I practiced a lot with when I was 17 and 18. And so in terms of someone having an influence, those were two, and still are, two of my heroes from tennis.
Beautiful player.
He was,
I remember that.
Yeah. What was it? Let me ask you about you coming to Wimbledon. When was the first time you came to Wimbledon?
One of the reasons I love Wimbledon is, for me, it used to be the herald of the summertime. So at the beginning of the championships was often when I was at school finishing exams. But by the time we got to the finals weekend, school would have broken up, and it would be the beginning of this totally unstructured holiday time, freedom,
bliss.
So Wimbledon is sort of the beginning of the freedom of the summer. So I've always associated it with this expectation of it's summertime, and I started watching it. I would have started watching it really acidiously in that era, I suppose. Of in the men's, it would have been you and Pete Sampras, Andre Agassi, Ivan Isavic. I remember the latter stages of John McEnroe, Bjorn Borg, but maybe that's just got folded into my sense of historical report. I remember
the
Stefan
archives,
Edberg.
incredible.
And watching those matches. Edberg, I really remember. Boris Becker, I remember being the young champion that he was.
I think they have enormous influence because of those rivalries, both in the men's and the women's. When you think about Martina Navratilova and Chrissy Evert, and then Steffi Graf and the Williams sisters, Agassi, Sampras, the list is endless. And then, Federer and Nadal coming into the equation. They are, icons of the sport, but they are also incredible ambassadors and role models. And I think that plays into the whole narrative around history, tradition and heritage, that this is such a special sort of institution.
And inspiring. It inspired me to play tennis. I love the sport. I love the clarity of it. You have to be a total athlete to play it. You need speed, power, precision, technique, skill, belief. It's a psychological battle as much as anything, especially in singles.
Yeah, exactly. You have to embrace that responsibility that you can't turn to a teammate and you can't have a substitute and say, I'm not playing my best today. Can someone else have a go?
And you can turn it around. If in the men's game you can lose the first two sets and still win. And that inspired me to play with my friends. We used to then go out and find a court and play for hours until the sun set, and we'd go to 5 sets and see if we could do it. But I was a teenager then. But I fell in love with the game itself, and I remember watching Steffi Graf. I remember really that final she had with Jana Novotná, where Novotná was something like 4-love up in the second set, having won the first set, and Graf came back to win the match, and I felt so sorry for Jana Novotná, but I thought what a champion Steffi Graf was. I do remember, and I hope it's not painful to relive it, I so remember your semi-final with Pete Sampras. And many matchups. And we were all willing you to win, but he was obviously such a powerful player.
And that's, I've had plenty of time to reflect on my career and since I retired, and I look back at those times, and it's made me reflect a little bit on with what Arthur Ferry is going through right now as a British player, and then making that enormous breakthrough. And for me, to get through to my first Grand Slam semi-final in '98, to be up against Pete Sampras, who was undoubtedly the king of Wimbledon, and I played him in '98 and '99, and he was ended up being a seven times champion. And I look back at and think of that. I'd love to have beaten him, and I beat him in my career, but he was better than me. But to have gone up against the very best and played on centre court in that environment with the support that I had.
You've beaten the very best. You've beaten Federer.
Yeah, I beat Federer.
Let's remind everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
I
was hoping we were going to get that.
How many times did you beat Roger Federer?
I beat him only once at Wimbledon, but I beat him 6 times in my career, and to have gone up against the greats of the game, and to have that opportunity here at Wimbledon in front of my people, my fans, on sort of my home turf. It was so special. Yeah. It was a real privilege.
And we loved watching Andy Murray too, but it was never going to be Murray Mound. It wasn't going to stick. And I should mention, I then, as an adult, I loved coming. I have done for many, many years. I've seen so many extraordinary matches, seen some extraordinary finals. Novak Djokovic and Roger Federer, Novak Djokovic and Andy Murray. I was here in 2013. It was the most extraordinary day.
I was commentating.
It must have been. I mean, I wish I could have listened to it, but I was watching live.
It was, and look, prior to that, the last male player to win at Wimbledon was Fred Perry in 1936, and so I had heard the narrative around a British player. I'd lived it, and to be in the commentary box that day and to see Andy to go up against his greatest rival now, someone I consider the greatest male player of all time, and deal with all those elements and come out on top. It was one of the most extraordinary occasions, and that's part of the Wimbledon legacy, and what Andy then did for British tennis as that leader and that role model.
The Olympics straight away, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was just before.
Just before.
Yeah, so he.
Of course, Olympics 2012,
yes, and he lost to Roger in the final, and then to come back the following year and to show that sort of resilience and
he did it in the most Andy Murray way possible.
He certainly did.
We went all the way to 5. There was no fifth set tie break.
Yeah, it was going to be a grind.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
Why do it the easy way if you can do it the hard way?
It's pure. That's what he loves, though, right?
He does. Yeah.
I remember hearing him say at the Australian Open towards the end of his career, he won. Happiest.
He is,
what an athlete.
Yeah, and he's part of the list of great players and great champions.
And you mentioned so many, and I feel it's been such an honour to see them up close. One of the things I feel when I was coming more regularly as an adult is the, and if you haven't ever been, but then it's worth describing. But walking onto centre court, I think it is one of the most majestic, spectacular arenas of sporting theatre in the world. And there are some great stadia of all different kinds of sports, but centre court has a magic about it.
It really does, and I think what is so special and so unique is that when you come from the locker room and you walk through the members area, and I think again that leans into the element that this is a tennis club first and foremost. It's a tennis club that has a tennis tournament, and when you walk through the corridors and you can feel the great champions that you're following in their footsteps, and you come through the royal box area, you drop down past the trophies, you come underneath Kipling's quote, and then you walk onto centre court through the double doors. It is just such an atmosphere, and I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck sort of standing as you can imagine that. And also it's a 15,000 seater stadium, but it is so much more intimate. You can go to other stadiums around the world that seem twice the size, and they only have 3/4 of the spectators. And then when you get out onto the court, it's absolutely the respect from the spectators, where it is so quiet, and you know, it's the cliche, the silence is deafening, and that is so relevant.
And then followed by the roar.
Exactly, the extremes of that quiet hush to then, you know, the roof coming off the place. And I just wonder, from your point of view, you know, we talk about actors and actresses out on centre stage at Wimbledon.
Of course.
You know, when you're, you know, filming or in theatre, you know, how is that?
It's very similar.
It's I guess more in theatre, because that will be a sort of live production.
Yeah, and the audience, the crowd in this case, are as much a participant of the event as the actors themselves. As you all know, as you great athletes know, that how the crowd is responding to the match is really becomes a part of the match. And whether in the theatre, whether one's performing a serious piece or a comedy, especially in a comedy, but you can feel the waves of laughter.
Yes.
And there's
or not.
Or not. Yes. If you're in a comedy and there's no laughter, you've got something to worry about.
You can sense when you're playing tennis, and I think this is where Arthur Ferry is such a relevant topic right now.
Of course.
He's played brilliantly.
Yeah.
But
the fairy tale.
To come onto centre court at Wimbledon as a young man who grew up 5 minutes away, who's, you know, seen the tournament for so many years, but to go out there and to be able to embrace it, but also to perform the way he has.
Yes, and to not be overwhelmed by
it.
To be so composed and so steady. I do connect to that, because of course you want to rise to the occasion and meet the moment. I've had those moments in my life when you're stepping onto a big stage and it's a big night, or it's a, you know, there's it's an important moment, and you don't want.
And so what is the psychology from your point of view when you're stepping onto a stage? What is going through your mind? I mean, you've obviously got your part to play in a play, and you've got the lines or whatever it is.
I think I lean on routine.
Yeah.
Routines are helpful.
What's going to distract you if something's going to
deviating from routine? I think.
Right, and
I think you control what you can control.
Yeah.
And
in tennis, that's two things: your preparation and your performance.
I was about to say preparation. It is like
And are you aware of? So we going on to, and this is again one of the elements that you will remember, but it's a long time ago when I first played on centre court.
Yeah.
You would walk out through the double doors. You would go left to the corner, and then you would walk on the court.
Yes, I do remember
that. And then once you got sort of parallel, perpendicular to the service line, you would turn around and bow to the royal box.
Yes, I remember that.
And for me, I just thought it was the most wonderful tradition, and also the intimidation factor for my opponent, that my opponent was so much more worried about getting that wrong than their first couple of service games.
A little piece of theatre before playing.
It was. And that was actually something that the royal family said that they would be happy to not do it anymore. So that's why it doesn't exist. But I just think that adds to that the element of whatever occasion it is to be on centre court.
But I'd love to ask you about this too. We always talk in the theatre about nerves, and I think they say that, you know, they've studied the biochemistry of the body now, that the adrenaline and the endorphins, or the chemicals your body is producing when you're nervous, are the same chemicals you produce when you're excited. And so actually any sense of butterflies is the body's natural response to doing something unusual. And when I heard that, it made so much sense. So when I do on a big opening night of a play, for example, and I feel the butterflies as soon as I open my eyes in the morning, I feel it having my lunch, I think, okay, 6 hours and we're on. I actually welcome it, because it's the body saying, you're about to do something significant.
That you care about.
That I care about. Yeah. And then you can use that energy to sharpen you and maybe make you feel more awake and more alive and more open. And I with someone like Arthur Ferry and truly great tennis players who seem to
embrace it,
enhance their tennis on centre court. It's about somehow allowing that sense of occasion to inspire them to play their best tennis.
You need to recognise that the nervous tension is a good thing.
Yeah. I think if you go, oh no, ignore it, just do.
No.
For me, that wouldn't work.
No, I think that's denial.
Yeah.
And I think from a tennis player's point of view, if you weren't nervous, something's wrong.
Yeah.
But then recognising the nervous tension, but then dealing with it to make sure that it's not detrimental to your performance. And so for tennis players, if you come on the court and you're a bit nervous, your legs feel a little bit heavy.
Yes.
Your footwork's not going to be quite as sharp. And so, in the first 4 minutes of the warm-up, the first couple of games, really making sure that you get your feet, feet moving and really exaggerate that element. But that again, having to be consumed by what you're trying to do, the game plan, the strategy, rather than being distracted and having a negative effect, I think is fascinating, the psychology behind it all.
And how did it feel for you? I'm so intrigued, having watched you for so many years. Did you feel when you progressed into last 16 quarterfinals, semi-finals at Wimbledon, that you were at home, that this was your arena, or did you put pressure on yourself? Did you feel any external pressure?
No, I absolutely loved it, and that goes back to the piece around my mum taking me to Wimbledon the first time when I was 6. I then got the opportunity of playing first round in 1996 when I played Yevgeny Kafelnikov, who was French Open champion, and that was 15 years almost to the day. And when I walked out that day on centre court, I felt like the last 15 years I'd been preparing for this moment.
Wow.
I could not wait to get out there. I almost remember every shot from the warm-up that I've never remembered any other warm-up, but that was my moment. And so then to save 2 match points and win 7-5 in the 5th, that opening performance for me on centre court, I'm sure had such a positive effect on the way that I always played on centre court, and that it was my favourite court in the world. If I could have played my whole career on one court, it would have been centre court. And the support that I had, the atmosphere, it was the best. Simple as that.
I remember it that way. Of course, the difference between you and me is, I have a script I have that I've learned and rehearsed, and you're making up your lines. The magic of tennis is that you determine the rules of the game. Everybody knows what's in and what's out, and then it's improvisation. A great rally is improvisation, and you're corresponding with your opponent, and we can make magic, as we've seen. I mean, you had those semi-finals with Pete Sampras, that with Goran Ivanisevic, and it was Leighton Hewitt was the other semi-final, and then of course the great rivalry in men's tennis that came after you with Roger Federer and Rafa Nadal, where it seemed that there was something happening in their respectful, competitive rivalry
100%.
that elevated each individual. They loved each other, they respected each other, and because they're so highly skilled and so dexterous and so practiced and so prepared, their performance together was a magical thing.
I retired in 2007, and then in 2008 was the first time I worked for the BBC, and the first final I ever commentated on was 2008, and that was Federer Nadal. That was Nadal having lost in the previous Wimbledon finals, and for me still, that is the greatest match I've ever seen. To be the finals of Wimbledon, to see that rivalry that epitomized their sportsmanship, their passion, their intensity, but also the contrast. You've got Federer, who is just
elegance, composure,
completely, and the technical brilliance, and also with the power and the precision, the competitive spirit against, this left-handed bullfighter from Spain, who was coming onto Federer's territory, if I may, and for them to play what was just an absolute classic with Nadal being up 2-0, Federer winning the third and fourth in the tiebreak, and then in virtual darkness past 9 o'clock for Nadal to win 9-7 in the fifth. That, for me, is one of the best matches of all time.
I don't think it's too much to say. I find it balletic. I find there's a quality of movement in their physical expression, actually, which is characterized by all of you at the top level in this sport, where we are witness to very intense human drama, where the quality actually of the skill reveals almost the soul of the player. You can see their souls.
Because you're out on that stage in front of 15,000 people and millions in a television audience, and there is nowhere to hide.
There's nowhere to, and because you're so practiced and so, you've been doing it for so many thousands of hours, the imagery that is created by the intensity and quality of these rallies is a deep pleasure.
And I think when, in my lifetime, going back to 80, 81, Ball, McEnroe, all these great players, great matches, Chrissy Evert, Martina Navratilova I've mentioned, they are just strengthening the history and tradition of this great championships. And I think what is so special is that now this transcends tennis. I think for everybody that comes here throughout the fortnight, throughout the year, it's different. You know, people want to be dressed up. They want to look the part. They want to go and experience so many different elements of the championships, and how beautiful it is, the attention to detail, and that's something as a club and a championships we're very proud of. And I think about with Ralph Lauren and the partnership. I think there's so much symmetry with their values and their brand and their heritage and their elegance. I think it just makes it very, very special.
Yeah, it feels like there is extraordinary attention to detail, a really refined sense of taste, and an appreciation of the precision and the care in creating that sense of elegance. That it's watching great tennis players, that they seem effortless, and if you pulled most of us out of the crowd, we simply wouldn't be able to recreate the movement of those ground strokes. But similarly, I think with Wimbledon style, it's become something that we all aspire to. That there is, it has enormous grace and class, and it truly is one of the best days of the year. It is somehow a summation of all those values you talk about: effortlessness, precision, refinement, good taste, sportsmanship.
And I love the fact that there are elements that stay the same, and I hope they do stay the same, and those are the traditions. But there's also this element of innovation, where looking to improve and enhance and not stand still. And I think an obvious two would be the roofs on centre court and court one. Huge additions, and
as you're talking about, Nadal and Federer playing in the darkness, and that doesn't happen anymore.
No,
and people can finish their matches and play to 11 o'clock.
And they were fundamentally brought in for rain, and it doesn't seem like we're having too much rain these days. But just looking at how the event continues to grow and evolve, but making sure that it very much holds on to their core values and the DNA of Wimbledon itself.
No, it's beautiful, and I feel that the values of Wimbledon are really exemplified by the players. You talk about Venus and Serena Williams, and
it's so special, Serena coming back this year,
and their kind of history with the sport. I think they changed the sport. Actually, I think they changed what was possible in terms of they were just total players, Serena particularly, and the athleticism that she brought to it, but also the style, and that actually tennis players, it seems to me, are unique in elite sport. They understand that bringing a personal sense of style is welcome, and they all look magnificent. They don't look the same, and that when people come to Wimbledon, they want to match that. They want to match that this is an elevated event, and almost like we talk about how playing on centre, you want to meet the moment. I feel when you come to Wimbledon, you want to meet the moment.
Yes.
And
you've got to elevate your game.
Yeah, you've got to elevate your game. Yeah, exactly.
And what have you thought about? About the championships?
I got to ask. Well, I want to ask you. I got to ask you about this year, because it feels like this year feels more open as a competition for the men's and the women's singles than it's ever been.
100%.
I'd have to ask you your thoughts about Novak Djokovic. The other night,
I commentated against Felix Auger-Aliassime,
who I've seen play regularly. I saw him at the Laver Cup twice. I've seen him at the US Open. I think he's a fantastic player, and he played a blinder. He played a blinder.
He's playing as well as he's ever played, and then across the net, you've got a gentleman at the age of 39.
This is what I wanted to ask you about.
It was extraordinary, and I've watched Djokovic for 20 years, and I've seen him break virtually every record, but to see him in that environment and play at that level, the physicality, to be on court for 5 hours and 15 minutes and in the most important moments, deliver at such high quality, it was astonishing. And I think the big challenge for him is that he's got to look at his recovery. And
so what I wanted to ask you, what's he doing? What does he do?
I wouldn't have thought he's playing a lot of tennis.
No.
He doesn't need to come in and hit balls, but it will be about ice baths and stretching. And nutrition and hydration, sleep and he's obviously been through this process many times, but every event that he comes to, he's that little bit older. And it really is uncharted territory, I think, for a 39-year-old in the men's to be playing in this era at that age with that physicality. So he comes up against Jannik Sinner.
He seemed to get stronger and faster as the match went on.
And more focused, I think. To begin with, he was a bit distracted. There was a lot of chat going back and forth to his box, but
he had an issue with his calf
muscle, and
suddenly
I think
5 hours later,
dealing with adversity is something that he does so well, but I think he almost revels in it. He loves that confrontation. So that's a fascinating matchup in the semi-finals with Djokovic and Sinner, and
Sinner maybe not playing at his best at the moment. I mean, what do I know? Again, an amateur speaking.
He's playing well because he's through to the semi-finals, but because he's set the bar so high with the way that he's played throughout the year, I don't think he's playing his best. And so there is a great opportunity for both players. And then you move to the bottom half of the draw. You've got Sasha Zverev, who's just
coming off the French,
won his first Grand Slam, having lost in 3 previous finals. And I see him around the backstage, if you like, and he just looks more relaxed. He's got a smile on his face. He's won, and now he's playing with his freedom on grass, which never been past the 4th round, and beat Taylor Fritz in the previous round where he's lost 6-7 times in a row, and all of a sudden he is looking in the draw to the semi-finals, and who's there?
Arthur Ferry.
Incredible. Absolutely.
I mean, and the wind is with him. I think it feels like he has momentum, he has confidence, he has belief,
and enormous ability.
What skill? Extraordinary skill. He seems to. I know he's about 23 years old. He's young. He seems to have a coverage of the court which I find extremely impressive. Those fast twitch muscles are working.
Exceptional.
Being able to, he doesn't seem to be able to be beaten, even if he's lobbed or even if he's
always
having to come up to the net.
Or chasing every ball down, but then when he's in and out of the corners, so when he is in defensive positions, he's really able to, hit strong shots to get back into the rally, turn defense into attack. But to me, the psychology, the way that he's been able to deal going out onto centre court, having had no previous experience. He qualified and won a round in the Australian Open. He started the year ranked 191 in the world, and now he was in the 4th round playing Dimitrov, who's huge, big match experience, and the way he played from 2 sets to 1 down, a break in the 4th, the way he responded, he never got frustrated, he kept to his game plan and delivered in the most important moments. When you have one victory like that, sometimes as a younger, inexperienced player, it's difficult to back it up, to come out there 2 days later and do it again. And against Flavio Cobolli, an Italian who's just been in the Roland Garros final, is top 10 in the world, and to not only beat him but destroy him in the third set, winning 6-love. It just,
and Cobolli played well in the first 2 sets.
He did, but Ferry came up with the answers. He had the solutions, and then with the finish line in sight, he didn't blink, he didn't stutter. He went for it. And
I think we can all learn from that too. I mean, I always feel like tennis has the best life lessons, and that tennis players have to, and the best, the Serena Williamses of the world, the Novak Djokovic's of the world, Roger Raffat, this capacity to lose a point and then cancel any sense of failure or humiliation or shame about it, and then maybe a break point, match point, set point, play the best tennis of your life. This thing of like, never mind, that was then, this is now. To be present with the ball you're playing.
It's exactly that.
And then play again. It's
the
remarkable.
skill. It's the skill to have a selective memory, and you want to remember the good shots for the confidence that goes with it. But anything else, you're erasing it, but you're staying in the moment. Sports psychology is about staying in the present. It's not about the previous point. It's not about the next game.
Easier said than done.
Yeah, so much easier said than done. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you this, and I know we don't have long, but watching some of the matches recently, I was watching Dimitrov and Berrettini at the weekend.
Yeah, what a match that was.
An amazing match it was. And watching their body language, and it seems like sometimes when the shoulders slump and the arms go up and the head goes down and maybe a player looks to their box, that set in that particular match, those sets got lost by those players. And something happened with both of them, with Grigor and Matteo, where in the next set they would reset their bodies and the shoulders would go back, the head would go up, they'd play a couple of points, take a risk, win the match, maybe get a break back, and suddenly they're moving, they're walking, carrying themselves with a different quality of belief, which it seems to me is transmissible in their body language, that they truly believe this is winnable again. And it struck me that is, I've never seen it so legible.
And you're absolutely right, and everything you are talking about is controlled by that 6 inches between your ears. It's all mindset.
Yeah.
And so why do you get frustrated?
Yeah.
Why do you drop your head? And that is what is going on in your mind. So
and where the belief comes
exactly,
from.
and that's the more I've been around it, looking at the junior game, looking at the pathway for professional players, looking at the players that compete at Wimbledon, and looking at the best. So much of it is a mentality, and they're all great athletes to be competing here. They're all phenomenal tennis players, but when you get to the very top and the latter stages of the slams, I think that mentality is so important. And therefore, to think about Arthur Ferry, he's so young, he's so inexperienced. I think the biggest challenge for him will be dealing with what is going on between the ears, and how fast his mind is going to be racing, and how quickly he can bring his thoughts back to the process of the way that he wants to play each and every point, going up against the Grand Slam champion, someone that's been in multiple semi-finals of Grand Slams. But having said that, the 12th man in that event is no doubt the crowd.
Yes.
They are going to be hugely,
you would know better than anyone.
And I think that's where
Andy.
they can be a huge asset. And you've got to be able to embrace that, but still not be distracted by it.
Well, and for Zverev, he's got to get ready to be, be the bad guy in a way. To be the villain.
And he can't control what
that.
Is going to happen with the crowd. So therefore, not to be distracted, just to have that focus and attention of what he wants to do. And then you reflect on, on the women's semi-finals. We've had 9 different winners the last 9 years in the women's game, and
I wanted to ask you about the women's. It feels like all the top seeds and the favourites to win this year are out.
Yes.
And so it feels like the field is completely open. I mean, all 4 of them are great players.
Most definitely.
They've got close before.
There have been the favourites in our minds,
yes,
and they may be the top-ranked players, but I think when you look at the strength and depth of the women's game and how much belief the lower-ranked players have, they step on the court not overawed. They look at the opportunity of causing that upset. And now you look at the women's semi-finals. We're going to have a new champion, and that's hugely exciting.
Dare I ask you to name the finalists in both the men's and the women? I won't ask you to name the potential champion. In your head, if you had to pick 2 finalists in the men's and the women's, who are they?
I think if I had to pick the 2 finalists in the women's, I would go for Muchova and Kostyuk. And in the men's, I will go for Sinner. And I don't enjoy saying it because I'd love Arthur Ferry, but I think Zverev has just got a little bit too much game for Arthur Ferry, but can't wait to see.
But as we know, Wimbledon always brings the drama. It brings a new story, a new fairy tale every time.
I like that.
I've got one more question for you.
Sure.
Before we wrap up. In one word, with such a history of this extraordinary place, if you can sum it up, what does Wimbledon mean to you?
One word. I think I would say pinnacle.
I love that. I think I would have put that on a T-shirt. And is there one moment, one match, one day that means the most to you in your memory?
I still think, given my background and the experience of my mum, who was a huge supporter of my tennis career, for her to bring me on my first visit to centre court, and then 15 years later to get that opportunity, be out on centre court for the first time and save 2 match points and win 7-5 in the 5th, that will always be a match that lives long in my memory.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's all we have time for. Thank you for joining us here at Centre Court in SW19 at the Wimbledon Championships. I have been honoured to speak to international icon of the game, Tim Henman. Thank you so much, Tim, for sharing all your insight, all your expertise.
I hope we can do it again.
I would love to.
A lot of fun.
I would love to. I love it. It's, as I say, it's one of my favourite days of the year. And to speak to you, you've been such an extraordinary legend and such an extraordinary athlete, and your history with this place is so storied and so complex and so rich, and an honour, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.